Hello there, welcome to this second channel video. This video is sponsored by Puget Systems, who have very kindly provided an absolute powerhouse of a PC to help me in my future slow-mo endeavors. And that's what this video is about. Why don't we take a look at the new setup versus the old one. When I first started the slow-mo guys, I didn't have a computer powerful enough to handle the very large phantom files. And it was at that point that I had to pick between a Mac and a PC. I taught myself to edit using Adobe Premiere on a PC and had since switched to Final Cut 7. And it was at that point that I decided I just preferred using Final Cut on the Mac. It just crashed less. That was really the main thing. They're very similar in the way you edit. However, all of the official Phantom software runs exclusively on a PC. So to download the raw Phantom files, I had to have a PC as well. And I would also use that Phantom software to convert the raw files to video files that I can edit on my Mac. And this is all around 2010. At the time, there was a third-party plugin for Mac that let you access the raw Phantom files, and there was also a downloading piece of software, but both were incredibly expensive. I just thought it was easier for me to use the free Phantom software on a PC and then transfer all that to my Mac. So that worked pretty well for me for the first 5 or so years of doing slow-mo guys, where I would download and convert Phantom files on my PC, edit on a Mac. I actually saved up in 2010 to buy a Mac Pro. It was by far the most expensive thing I'd ever bought. When I moved to the US, my Mac Pro was too big to take with me, sadly, so I left it in England and I just got a Mac laptop to continue editing on. It was actually a lot slower than my Mac Pro, but I eventually upgraded that to an iMac. During the time that I was editing on my Mac laptop in the US, I was using Boot Camp to download, so I still had to have Windows on all my Mac machines if I was going to control the Phantoms in the field, or if I was just going to download them. And it was during this period that we took delivery of the Phantom Flex 4K, which, in comparison to the Phantom Flex, much bigger files in size and in resolution. And my little MacBook Air was choking. I couldn't finish a video without making tons of proxies, and it was definitely time to upgrade. So at that point, I got the 5K Retina iMac, mainly because much more powerful than the laptop, and it had a screen that I could see the entire 4K image without squishing it down to fit in my tiny laptop screen. That system worked fine for a while, but I did want more storage. So in 2015, I got a PC that it was basically just loaded with hard drives, and eventually I added 10 gigabit Ethernet to it, which you can see in this video here. The 10 gig Ethernet, a lot of people in the comments were confused about that. That's not my internet speed. That's literally just the connection between the Cine station that downloads the Phantom files and my PC. I don't have 10 gigabit internet. During this period, I also upgraded all of our regular speed cameras to match the quality of the Phantoms. Before, we were just using DSLRs, so we now had much bigger files in our regular speed stuff as well. And it was at this point that, with my iMac, my exports were taking a very long time. Eventually, I replaced the iMac with an iMac Pro around the time that came out. That was really just to speed up some of the 4K and 8K exports that we'd been doing. So that's been the setup up until this point. So as you can tell, throughout the years, I've been trying to make constant improvements. And next up for me was to improve the software side of things. Yes, the official Phantom software is free and does a fine job with most cameras. However, I did start using other cameras more often, cameras that weren't the Phantom Flex or the Phantom Flex 4K. Ones like the 1610 or Destin's V2511, and I noticed that the Phantom software actually struggled debayering that footage. You may be able to see what I'm talking about here with this aliasing artifacty look, where the software can't quite determine what color a pixel should be, so it just erroneously shows up as blue, red, or green. You can learn about how the Bayer filter on a camera sensor works, the ratio of green pixels to red and blue pixels. And the Phantom raw file stores all of the color information as metadata, and it's then down to that software to interpret that information and display it as accurately as it can. The software allows you to pick different color interpolation algorithms. The higher quality ones drastically decrease the playback rate, so sometimes you want to pick a faster one so you can quickly view your footage, but usually for exports, you'll want to pick best. And here I learned best wasn't that great. the plugin that I mentioned earlier in the video, the expensive third-party plugin called Glue Tools, which at the time I bought it had actually come down in price a lot. It did a much better job with the color information on those lower resolution cameras. However, this plugin no longer works, as is the Apple way. Every single macOS update has created more and more problems for this workflow. This plugin relies on QuickTime 7, which was removed from macOS with Catalina, so it was time to move on. Thankfully, as phantom cameras have become more popular in the TV and movie industry, it's been getting much more widespread support in mainstream software. DaVinci Resolve is the one I eventually settled on to take care of converting the raw files into video files that I can edit with. It was at this point, after switching to DaVinci Resolve, that I got in touch with Puget, and they offered to build us a new custom PC. And the process was very interesting. We had a long phone conversation where I explained every point from the download of the Phantom file to the final export of my current workflow. And they built me a PC so custom to my specific Slow-Mo Guys workflow needs. Tons of GPU power for dealing with 8K timelines. Tons of long-term storage. 4 terabytes of NVMe storage, which is the destination where the files come directly off the Mac, as well as the temporary destination for any export out of DaVinci Resolve. More RAM than all of my previous computers in my life combined. 10 gigabit Ethernet for the Cine Station. And most importantly of all, which was actually a big decider of which CPU path we were going to take, this PC has direct Thunderbolt 3 support right there on the motherboard. So I'm not going to lose any speed just by grabbing my massive Thunderbolt RAIDs and just plugging them straight into this. And finally, a brand new copy of Windows Vista. Okay, that last part was a lie. It's basically the fewest bottlenecks we could possibly fit into a PC. So I'm going to use this PC on everything moving forwards, every future video, including my long-running behind-the-scenes project of trying to make a best of 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray of the best of the Slow-Mo Guys. And that isn't going to be just grabbing all of my exports from the past and squeezing them onto a disk. A lot of the old YouTube videos were exported using the old method of the free Phantom software, which honestly struggled when there were moments of very fine detail. So I'm going to go back to the raw Phantom file of every shot that I use for the Blu-ray, which I have. I have everything I've ever filmed stored. You can see why I very quickly fill up all of my storage. Sorry, Linus. And I'm going to re-export each Phantom file using DaVinci Resolve. So we'll have much more accurate color and detail and less artifacts, basically remastering all of the old YouTube videos. So for that, I'm going to need a lot of CPU and GPU power, and that's what this Puget PC has. In addition to that, the free Phantom software doesn't utilize the GPU at all. It will literally just sit there idle while the CPU kind of moseys through the file. So it does take a very long time to convert files this way. In comparison, Resolve absolutely blasts through this stuff. For a test, I just took a handful of old Phantom HD files from almost a decade ago and converted them to very high quality H.265 video files. And the speeds I was getting on this thing blew my mind. Plowing through these files at over 250 frames a second. The videos themselves play back at 25. So it's converting the videos at over 10 times the speed of just playing them. So I'm honestly going to be able to fly through this task and make our old stuff look as good as possible. This PC would also be great for a switch entirely away from Mac, and I might slowly transition back to Premiere because I know it's a lot better now than it was in the late 2000s, which is mainly when I was using it. Although this PC is designed to be a workstation aimed around my specific video production workflow, it does smash video games as well. I played the entirety of Half-Life Alyx on it. Buttery smooth frame rate in headset. And I'm honestly very thankful for this new machine. It's going to save me a lot of time. And it's just such a nice feeling to have a project in front of you where you don't have to wait on your hardware. Well, there you have it. Vast improvements to the workflow, in my opinion. Big thanks to Puget Systems for sponsoring this video and, of course, providing the PC itself. Hopefully I'll be able to milk the power out of this thing over the coming years and speed through my future tasks. Hopefully that was a nice little insight into the current post-production workflow of the Slow-Mo Guys channel. Let me know in the comments if you've got any questions or if you think I'm doing anything in a ridiculous way. I'll be very interested to read them. I'll see you in the next video.